Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending. My name is Acting Sergeant Jennifer Giddings, Media Relations Officer from the RCMP Central Region. Before we start, I would like to remind everyone to please turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate, please. In a few minutes, Assistant Commissioner Matt Peggs will deliver a statement, first in English, followed by the same statement in French for a Francophone audience. His name is spelt M-A-T-T-P-E-G-G-S. Following the statements from a representative, we will open the floor up for questions. We have representatives here from the RCMP, GTA Southwest, GTA Inset, and they will be available to answer questions. Here at the tables, you will find Staff Superintendent of Detective Operations, Joe Matthews of the Toronto Police Service, Inspector Scott Purchase, RCMP Southwest, GTA Inset, and Toronto Police Service, Superintendent Glenn Cournier, Durham Regional Police Service, Chief Superintendent Pat Morris from the Provincial Operations Intelligence Bureau of the OPP, Superintendent James Parr, Officer in Charge of Southwest GTA Inset, Superintendent Rhonda Corsi of the York Regional Police, Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Merci de votre présence. Je suis la sergente intérimaire Jennifer Giddings, responsable des relations avec les médias de la région du centre de la GRC. Avant de commencer, je voudrais rappeler à tout le monde d'éteindre leur cellulaire ou de le mettre en mode vibration. Dans quelques minutes, le commissaire adjoint Matt Peggs fera une déclaration d'abord en anglais, puis en français pour notre public francophone. Son nom s'écrit M-A-T-T-P-E-G-G-S. Après les déclarations de nos représentants, nous passerons aux questions. Des représentants de l'équipe intégrée de la sécurité nationale de la région du Grand Toronto de la GRC seront disponibles pour répondre aux questions. Surintendant principal Joe Matthews du service de police de Toronto, inspecteur Scott Purchase de l'équipe l'intégrée de la sécurité nationale de la RGT de la GRC et service de police de Toronto, surintendant Glenn Cournier du service de police régional de Durham, le surintendant James Parr, officier responsable de l'équipe intégrée de la sécurité nationale de la RGT de la GRC, puis superintendant Rhonda Corsi du service de la police régionale de York. I would now like to invite RCMP Assistant Commissioner Matt Peggs to the podium. J'aimerais maintenant inviter au micro le commissaire adjoint de la GRC, Matt Peggs.
All right, good morning, everyone. As was said, my name is Assistant Commissioner Matt Peggs. I'm the Regional Commander of the RCMP Central Region of Federal Policing. I'd like to welcome you and thank each and every one of you for joining us here today. I'm here to provide information on a terrorist attack that was prevented by the RCMP Federal Policing's Greater Toronto Area Integrated National Security Enforcement Team, who we'll call INSET. The GTA INSET is made up of the representatives, many of whom you see before you today. The RCMP, Toronto Police, CBSA, the Ontario Provincial Police, York Regional Police, Peel Regional Police Service, and the Durham Regional Police, with assistance that we get from the Ministry of the Attorney General of Canada and of Ontario and the Public Prosecution Service of Canada. INSET investigates threats to national security, including criminal extremism and terrorism. These investigations carried out by INSET look into the most serious threats to Canada's safety and security. On July 28, 2024, GTA INSET arrested a father and son at a hotel in Richmond Hill who were in the advanced stages of planning a serious, violent attack in Toronto. We became aware of this in early July. A publication ban is currently in place in order to protect the integrity of the complex investigation. However, I will speak to the details that I can provide at this time. With the consent of the Attorney General of Canada, and where appropriate, the Attorney General of Ontario, 2 individuals stand charged with a number of criminal code terrorism offences. Ahmed Eldidi, age 62, and Mostafa Eldidi, age 26, face charges for their alleged terrorist activities, including participation in the activities of a terrorist group, ISIS or Daesh, contrary to Section 8318 of the Criminal Code. Facilitating a terrorist activity, contrary to Section 8319 of the Criminal Code. Conspiracy to commit murder, contrary to Section 465 of the Criminal Code for a terrorist purpose. 1 count each of possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose, contrary to Section 88 of the Criminal Code, again, for a terrorist purpose, those weapons being an axe and a machete. In addition, Ahmed Eldidi faces 1 additional charge for aggravated assault, contrary to Section 268 of the Criminal Code. I want to emphasize there is no evidence to suggest that there is any remaining risk to the public. I'd also like to say that I'm very proud of the impressive team effort that went into this investigation. The success would not have been possible without the work done by all involved civilian and sworn members and a collective effort from our partner agencies that I mentioned earlier and that are here before you. I would also like to thank the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS. They also assisted with this investigation, as always, and I want to thank them for their assistance. Along with our law enforcement partners, the RCMP remains committed to combating violent extremism both in Canada and abroad. Thank you for everyone coming here today. I'll be now reading this statement in French, after which I will turn it over to our moderator to lead us through the Q&A portion. Bonjour à tous, je suis le commissaire adjoint Matt Peggs, commandant régional de la région du centre de la GRC. Et j'aimerais souhaiter le bienvenue à chacun d'entre vous et vous remercier de vous être joints à nous aujourd'hui. J'ai pour tâche aujourd'hui de fournir de l'information sur l'attentat terroriste qui a été déjoué par l'équipe intégrée de la sécurité nationale, plus communément appelée EISN, de la région du Grand Toronto. L'EISN de la région du Grand Toronto est composé de représentants de la GRC, du Bureau du procureur général de l'Ontario, du Service des poursuites pénales du Canada, du Service de la police d'Ontario, de Toronto, de l'Agence des services frontaliers du Canada, de la police provinciale de l'Ontario et des services de police régionaux de York, de Peel et de Durham. L'EISN fait enquête sur les menaces à la sécurité nationale, ce qui comprend les activités criminelles de nature terroriste et extrémiste. Elle enquête sur les plus graves menaces à la sécurité du Canada. Le 28 juillet dernier, l'EISN de la région du Grand Toronto a arrêté, dans un hôtel de Richmond Hill, un homme et son fille qui ont été aux dernières étapes de planification d'un important et grave attentat à Toronto. Nous avons pris connaissance de cette situation au début du mois de juillet. Une ordonnance de non-publication est en vigueur afin de protéger l'intégrité de cette enquête complexe. Cela dit, je peux vous fournir quelques détails suivants pour le moment. Avec l'autorisation du procureur général du Canada, 2 individus ont été accusés de plusieurs infractions de terrorisme prévues au Code criminel. Les présumées activités terroristes de Ahmed Eldidi, âge 62 ans, et de Mostafa Eldidi, âge 26 ans, ont donné lieu aux chefs d'accusation suivants. Participation aux activités d'un groupe terroriste, ISIS ou Daesh, en contravention à l'article 83-18 du Code criminel. facilitation d'une activité terroriste en contravention de l'article 83-19 du Code criminel, complot en vue de commettre un meurtre en contravention à l'alinéa 465 du Code criminel, une chef d'accusation visant chacun des individus pour possession d'une arme d'une dessin dangereux contravention à l'article 88 du Code criminel. Les armes en question étaient une hache et une machette. De plus, Ahmed Eldidi fait face à une accusation des voies de faits graves en contravention de l'article 268 du Code criminel. Je tiens à souligner que tout semble indiquer que le risque pesant sur la sécurité publique a été écarté. Je tiens également à dire combien je suis fier de l'impressionnant travail de l'équipe qui a mené à ces arrestations. Cette issue n'aurait pas été possible sans l'excellent travail de tout le personnel civil et policier des divers services et sans la collaboration des services et organismes partenaires. Finalement, le Service canadien du renseignement de sécurité, ou SCRS, a également participé à l'enquête. Je tiens à remercier également les membres de son personnel pour leur contribution. Avec le soutien de ses partenaires de l'application de la loi, la GRC demeure résolue à lutter contre l'extrémisme violent, tant au Canada qu'ailleurs dans le monde. Merci à tous à votre présence aujourd'hui. Je donnerai la parole à notre modératrice, Jennifer Goodings, qui dirigera la période des questions. Merci.
We will now start taking questions. Please ask only one question with one follow-up if needed. You're welcome to ask your question in English or French. We will have time for plenty of questions, so can I take the first one?
Peter Edwards, Toronto Star. What can you tell us about the targets for the attack?
Sure, thank you for your question. I will defer to James Parr.
Certainly, sir. So with respect to your question,
Can you go to the mic?
No, thank you for the question. With respect to the individuals, at this time, we're treating this as a threat to the city of Toronto as far as particular groups or part of the population at this time. That is part of the publication ban. As Assistant Commissioner Peggs had mentioned, there is a publication ban in effect, and so this is part of the ongoing investigation, and I would not want to comment on that right now, but there is no ongoing threat to citizens in the city of Toronto. We're still trying to establish exactly who were the intended targets of this attack.
Can you tell us if it was elected officials or if it was members of the general public?
Again, I don't want to continue to reference the publication ban because I know everyone's aware of that. But in this particular case, would be considered the general population.
Sean O'Shea with Global News. You mentioned a machete and an axe. Are those the only weapons we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And can you describe what hotel was targeted here, or where you found them, which hotel in Richmond Hill?
So I wouldn't want to identify the hotel for obviously, I don't want to affect someone's commercial standing. The hotel itself is not, I don't think is part of, it was certainly not part of the attack, and it was simply a place where they attended.
They were renting rooms there.
In this particular case, there was a room, yes.
John Woodward from CTV. What can you tell us about this attack outside Canada and how that's connected to what happened allegedly here?
Certainly, and unfortunately that is a part of the emerging investigation. One of the individuals, as previously mentioned, is accused of an attack outside Canada, and that's going to take some time in order to get all the particular details, but we have enough obviously to charge this individual with that offense.
Was the attack in service of an ISIS operation in a conflict?
Unfortunately, I would not like to comment on that at this time.
Hi, Jamie Strachan with CBC. According to the the court documents, the aggravated assault charge against Mr. Eldidi took place in 2015 in service of ISIS, as the court documents say. Was he on your radar at all before the beginning of July?
No, sir.
My second question, are either of these two Canadian citizens?
Yes, sir, they are.
Both? Are they both Canadian citizens?
As far as I understand, yes, they are.
I mean, obviously this happened the course of this investigation unfolded very quickly. There began at the beginning of July and the arrests were made, 4 weeks later. Can you walk us through how the investigation played out and how this all happened so quickly?
So I'll do the best that I can to address your question. You are correct in that this was a very fast-moving, and the investigation came to our radar and emerged in a very quick fashion. So as far as what we did investigationally, I'll refrain from commenting on techniques or how we proceeded with this, but the information that was presented to us was sufficient to obviously launch an investigation, and it led to enough evidence to result in charges against these two individuals. And
Was there ever, in the course of your investigation, a video uncovered that was made by this father and son?
any sort of video or particular evidence would be part of that investigational holding, which I won't comment on at this time.
Is that covered by the publication then?
Anything to do with the investigation and leading to these charges right now is part of the publication ban, except for what's in the information that's obviously part of the public record.
The father and son, were they residents of the city of Toronto, and are there multiple different locations where maybe evidence has been seized as part of the investigation at this point?
Certainly. So as part of the information, yes, they are residents of the Toronto region.
And are there multiple addresses or locations that they were using maybe to plan this attack? I mean, you mentioned the hotel in Richmond Hill. Were there other locations like this where they previously in the last month rented a room or gathered to plan this attack?
Certainly. Not that I'm aware of.
Morgan Crunchy with City News. So is it just the father and son that are investigating here in Canada, or with the ongoing investigation, is there a possibility there are more people connected?
Mm-hmm. So again, and I know it sounds a bit of a redundant thing, at this time, these are the two individuals that are being charged with offenses. We don't believe that there's a greater threat to the city of Toronto or surrounding region. And so if the investigations goes in such a direction that other people come to our attention, well, certainly that investigation will go and we'll try to see what's going on there. But at this time, it's simply these two individuals.
I know you wanted to get specifics, but was part of this investigation or part of your awareness of this because of things that were posted online, shared online, that kind of thing?
So the RCMP receives information in a variety of ways, and that could be through the form of tipsters. It can come through other governmental agencies and partners. Once again, the way that this unfolded, I will curtail my comments at this time, but it wasn't as a result of social media, for example. As we discussed a little bit earlier, we were not really aware of these individuals prior to the emergence of this file.
You mentioned they're Canadian citizens. Are they citizens of any other country?
Not that I'm aware of. I know that they're Canadian citizens at this point, but I'm not aware of dual citizenship or anything of that nature.
Are American authorities engaged in this investigation as well?
No.
Joseph Quigley, Newmarket Today. Is there anything you can say as far as perhaps why they are in Richmond Hill in particular as opposed to any other place in the Toronto area?
Mm-hmm. I don't have any information or reason why they selected that particular hotel or Richmond Hill.
Is there any reason to suspect that they were receiving money from ISIS operatives elsewhere around the world to carry out and plan this attack?
Mm-hmm. That would fall under the category of investigative holdings, but for what it's worth, I'm not aware. I can't confirm any of that they were supported like that.
You do hear of people getting radicalized by online videos and communications. Was that a factor here?
I couldn't comment on that, and the main reason being is that the investigation is ongoing, and perhaps in the future we will have evidence to suggest that it was a factor, but at this time, I would say not.
How were you able to link the father to something that happened in Iraq almost nearly 10 years ago? What piece of evidence, how were you able to link him to something that happened there so long ago?
Well, naturally, I won't comment on how we learned, but I'll take this opportunity to, again, congratulate and express my gratitude to the regular members, civilian members, and public service employees that work within GTA Inset as far as working together and actually putting all the pieces together to result in that particular charge. But as far as specifics, I'll refrain from divulging further.
And in terms of members of the city of Toronto, communities within the city of Toronto that may have been threatened, have you liaised with leaders of those communities to kind of bring them into the tent of what kind of threat their community was facing?
So we're in communication with our policing partners, as you can see from the dais today. Inset itself, again, is an independent body. We're not liaising with politicians or members of parliament in that regard.
Not members, but maybe Toronto Police could weigh in on this. I mean, in terms of specific communities within the city or a community that may have been the target here, have you liaised with leaders in that community?
We have not liaised with the leaders of that community. However, that doesn't mean that that's not going to take place. As the investigation unfolds and we learn more, there may be opportunities to engage our communities.
Superintendent, can you talk about the role of Toronto Police in this investigation specifically?
Well, the Toronto Police has members embedded in the Inset, the Integrated National Security Enforcement Team, being an inspector purchase. So we work with our partners at Inset and with other law enforcement agencies, but terrorism charges are the purview of the federal agency.
Superintendent, did the father and son live together? Did they cohabitate?
Yes, sir.
They were, and go ahead, sir.
Yeah, sorry, well, why was Toronto targeted? Was it simply because they live here and just geographically was the spot?
Part of the information that we have within that investigation suggests that Toronto would have been a target.
Are there other family members who reside in that home with the father and son? And if there are they cooperating with your investigation?
So obviously with a press conference of this nature, we'd like to focus on the two individuals who were charged, and out of respect for privacy for other family members, I would not like to comment on who else they might be residing with or who might be living in the neighborhood, etc.
You talk about a member of the general population in Toronto. Was there a religious group that was targeted by these individuals? I mean, obviously tensions are quite high in the city itself between members of different religious faiths.
Yeah, naturally, it's a very tense time, and we're all aware of that. We're still trying to establish completely who those targets might be. So,
which agency carried out the arrests?
So the RCMP carried out the arrest, and we had assistance from New York Regional Police as far as processing our procedures.
Question for you, just in terms of just understanding language and level of progression, when you say advanced stages of a violent attack, was this something that the Inset and the RCMP felt was going to happen tomorrow? Or when you use the word advanced, can you just give it some context?
Yeah, I certainly can. How I'll frame my answer is like this. As you know, they were charged with having particular weapons. In other words, we're pretty confident how close they were to moving from simply having those tools and then moving on to actioning that threat. And so I couldn't tell you 6 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. But once again, what I'll say is, because of the swift nature of all of law enforcement, our partner agencies in this, we were able to halt that threat. But we believe it was quite, not only, like, I don't want to say imminent, as again, it's within an hour or two, but it was close.
And was Toronto the only target?
From what we have, we knew that there was a threat potentially to Toronto, and we're not aware of other threats within the GTA.
But your investigation wasn't indicated anything to do with firearms, explosives, none of that kind of stuff?
No, sir.
A question for Superintendent from Richmond. Please, can you speak more to your force's role in this and that processing aforementioned?
Yes.
Just wait till the mic gets discussed. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. York Regional Police is one of the partner agencies in the INSET group, and we are committed to supporting our policing partners in the realm of national security, and we will support them where necessary. So in this instance, as my partner has iterated, we were there to support the arrests and the processing of these two individuals.
Can you talk about the arrest? What was that moment like when your officers actually went into that hotel room or hotel and actually apprehended this father and son?
At the risk of being bland and the risk of perhaps not providing exactly the sort of information that is newsworthy, what I want to say is this. The teams that were responsible and the support teams that were responsible for effecting that arrest completed their job in a tactical manner. They did it exactly the way they're trained, and it went off exactly the way that it was planned. Of course, I was not there, so it's difficult to provide that first-person account, but based on the feedback provided by the investigative team, those support units, our emergency response team, as well as I believe the Durham Regional Paramedic Service was there as well. They effected that arrest in a textbook fashion, and luckily, I would say there was no damage that would be above what we would expect, and again, no serious injuries resulted from that arrest.
So it was the RCMP's tactical unit, correct?
Our emergency response team.
Yeah. And what time of day did this take place?
It happened later in the evening.
Late evening, like after 9?
Yeah, that's right.
Superintendent, given that you were able to prevent a serious attack in your words, in that these people were not at all on your radar a month ago, does it make you reassess the handle and the intelligence that you have on potential domestic terrorism in the GTA and across the country?
Certainly.
So I think the best way to answer that one,
Just one sec for the mic.
I got mine on here, I think.
No, we need that one. We can't hear yours. Yes. That's released.
Okay, we're good? All right. National security is very much the primary focus of the federal policing program, but it's also very much a shared responsibility, and that's why you have so many of the partners before you here today. So as was mentioned, we collect sources of intelligence, and we take tips, we take several things in, and so yes, we are constantly vigilant, as are all the other police services, and I would like the public to be as well. But as I said, national security is very much a shared responsibility. Primary focus of the RCMP's federal policing program, but shared responsibility amongst intelligence enforcement agencies also. And the national security landscape, the investigations we do, they're becoming more complex, but we remain vigilant as to the other police services, as to the intelligence agencies, and as we'd like the public to be as well, to continue to be able to address these threats.
As Jamie with City TV, and I understand you have a legal tightrope to walk here, but tensions are high throughout the world, and when we hear something like this happening in our own area, everyone's anxiety increases. Is there any more you can tell us to relieve some of that actions? Because there's communities out there that are now very fearful that this terrorist attack might have happened towards them, whether it be their religious based or culturally based. And you can understand how people's tensions and anxiety are really high now.
I can understand, but to protect the integrity of the investigation that we have and to respect the publication ban, there's nothing more that we can say with the details, except I can say that we believe there is no threat to public safety at this time based on the investigation that we've done.
Since ISIS was established about 2014 or so, there's been a number of
We adjust the resources and the support to individual investigations as the circumstances dictate.
Just on ISIS, I mean, they were a much greater threat in the past than they are now. I know a number of lieutenants and heads were killed around 10 years ago. What can you tell us about the strength of that organization today and its capacity to launch attacks in Canada or anywhere else?
So, do you have any?
Well,
And use the microphone if you can. Yeah, please use the microphone.
So with respect to your question, again, the RCMP as well as our policing partners, we truly are a law enforcement, public safety first domestically, and that's really our goal. So when you ask about internationally what that strength might be, a lot of that information would come from our partners, whether it's D&D, whether it's the service. So it's difficult for us to discuss what their bench strength would look like and what overall threat that they would pose to Canada. Because we have that synergy and that chemistry with our partners, when there's a threat or if there's information to suggest that there is a public safety concern, we'll receive it. One thing I will say with respect to this topic is that that's a threat that hasn't gone away and we haven't forgotten, especially in a world where so many other threats have emerged over the last number of years. But as far as ranking, for example, I wouldn't know where to place them, but it's still a concern.
Have you been able to ascertain how he came to Canada after seemingly being an active member of ISIS, committing what you charged him for and who knows what else, more than 10 years ago? How did he come to Canada? Was he a Canadian citizen in 2015? Can you put together and offer some of the information that you have on how this happened?
Yeah, I'm unable to comment or answer that right now, but I'm confident that the investigation will bear that out, and of course it'll be subject to your favorite publication ban probably.
I appreciate it's under a publication ban. Can you talk about the scale of threats to Toronto? Was this against one or two people, or are we talking about a larger scale attack that was possible here?
Mm-hmm. Our belief is it was small, to use your word, and simply the information we have is that it wasn't some sort of widespread sort of threat, which again provides us some confidence in saying that we believe that the threat is neutralized. We don't believe that there's something outstanding right now as we sit here. But as far as what or where that plan may have went, naturally we don't know how it could have grown, but we do know that it was real. And
how do you make the decision, Superintendent, as to how long you monitor someone like this father and son when they're on your radar before you actually move in and make an arrest and you determine it is a valid threat?
So each investigation will be different, naturally based on the factors. But to answer your question, in this particular case, like any other, if there is a threat and we have the evidence to charge, we will obviously act right away. So this wasn't a cat and mouse monitoring type situation. We wouldn't obviously put the public in jeopardy that way. So as soon as we knew that and again, it's misleading to use the word imminent, but apparent and forthcoming might be the best way to say it. Because this attack, we believe, was in its advanced stages, it was time to act and obviously intercede.
Just from that, are you saying that the hotel trip was a planning event? Were they on some kind of a attack planning retreat, if you will? Was the hotel trip part of it?
We're still going through our investigative holdings to determine the whole scope and breadth of their reason for being there.
Commissioner, I was wondering if I could ask you a question quickly on the mic there. Data shows over the last 8 to 10 months, basically since October, that rates of Islamophobia have gone up. And there may be people who use this news today to kind of ratchet that up. So I was wondering if you have any kind of message to the community as everybody kind of gets this news today.
I do. I think that it is necessary to treat terrorism as serious, but to treat it as a criminal act. This is not based on individual communities or anything like that. It's individuals that are terrorists and our criminals. That I think is the best way to focus our messaging.
Would you call this a homegrown plan? Would you say that it was hatched in the 416905?
Unfortunately, I think that'll come with time. As far as going back to that investigative piece, where we're able to put all the details together, we might have a better sense. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to provide you a definitive answer at this moment.
So I take it you're going through their internet, who they've been talking to, that sort of thing, to find out who tried
We're conducting a conventional investigation.
this, which would include the internet.
Anything that we're legally able to obtain, we'll do what we have to do.
Superintendent, can you say that this father, I guess, was an active member of ISIS back in 2015?
Once again, I would be remiss to make a conclusive statement about what his standing was, but there is sufficient evidence to charge him with the offense as listed on the information.
Can you say what type of employment the two had?
Actually, I can't confirm right now. And it's not because I don't want to or unable to. I don't have that information.
Did they have a pretty good property though, that they seem to be pretty well?
I believe it was actually a decent home, yes. But
Can you speak to, was there any attempt to procure, Tom from CB24, by the way, was there any attempt to procure firearms at all? We know that you're limited right now to the machete and the other weapon, but was there any attempt whatsoever that you're aware of at this point in time?
we're aware of the two weapons that we found them with as being part of this attack. As far as other the weapons, that'll come out in the investigation.
Can you let me know why the RCMP and INSET are involved in this, but say they wouldn't have been involved in the last major ISIS event, which I think would have been the Chicken Land shooting with the 3 individuals who were recently convicted? What's the difference between the 2 cases that involves all of these forces here, but I believe it was just Peel Police there?
So with respect to the investigation you're referring to, because of some certain elements of that investigation that came out during that trial, I will say that, again, that collective police force of jurisdiction and RCMP sort of collaboration, we were aware of that investigation. But again, it comes back down to evidence and what someone could be charged with or not.
So I guess you're kind of talking about why they weren't facing terrorism charges on top of the conspiracy to murder and or I believe it was actually murder, several murder charges. That's what the question you're answering there is, that there wasn't the evidence necessary for a terrorism charge?
Yes, sir.
Okay, gotcha.
Do you anticipate further charges against these two?
It's too premature to make a comment on that, sir.
Was the son born in Canada?
I'm not sure.
I mean, I might as well ask this as well. We've been kind of talking about various communities, but I should ask, do you think the Jewish community specifically was targeted here?
I'm unable to confirm at this time. Again, once we go through all the holdings, we'll be able to have a clear picture of who their grievances may have been with.
Just to be clear, you can't say when they moved to Canada if in fact they came from another country, is that right?
Yeah, I don't have the dates. It's not that I don't want to. I don't have the dates to provide that with you.
But you're not saying that they both came from another country, or you are confirming that?
No, I believe they came to Canada at a previous date.
We keep hearing about how easy it is to get guns in the GTA. Now, why do you think they had such unsophisticated weapons?
This is strictly an opinion, but it's one of the things that we see in the security world where, again, there's messaging about low tech, and that's what appears to be the case here.
And was the axe and machete recovered from the hotel room?
They were charged with having possession of these items.
But it was in the hotel room, not at their residence in Toronto?
They had them, yeah.
Just what you said earlier about low tech, are you kind of implying that because it's low tech, they're able to get the weapons easily without the scrutiny that might come with a firearms purchase? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Well, what I wanted to do is provide an overall answer with some of the things that we're seeing. What you just said is in fact true, it's easier, but I can't speak to their mentality or what their thought was I can only address what they were found.
We have time for one more question.
Were they looking at any RPAS or UAV type systems to use in their attack that you're aware of?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Like any drone type systems?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, this concludes our press conference. Thank you very much for attending. Ceci conclut notre conférence de presse. Nous vous remercions de votre présence. Thank you.
You can quote me on that.
Because that just goes through the charges.
Sorry about that.
Terror